Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of Gossip Finance, where I am your host, Alasius Inger.
I'm Duncan Sandlin. Welcome. Today's show, we're going to talk about business stuff and mainly employee rights, things like that. But some business strategy. So, first thing we're going to talk about, because it's just so exciting in the news today, Donald Trump's organization was found guilty on 17 counts of tax fraud.
I am so shocked, I can't even tell you how shocked I am.
Yeah.
See, this is my shocked face.
I'm sure this was the face he made. Anyway, so he wasn't charged with anything on this. This was just the organization. His CFO is a guy named Alan Weisselberg. Weisselberg basically pled to testify against the organization for a reduced sentence from 15 years to 5 months. So he got a deal and a half from the district attorney. Now, with this thing, the organization's only going to get fined $1.6 million, so it's not much in compared to what they stole, essentially, and tax fraud. Fraud is theft, by the way. What it does do is it's going to make them impossible for them to do business going forward. And now it's opened up the door for investigations and lawsuits against him, his children, and all the other executives at the Trump Org. So Letitia James, who's the DA in New York.
Yes, she is. My state, go Letitia James.
So she's going after him now. So there's a lot of things that happen. So essentially what they were doing, I guess, I'll teach you guys tax fraud today. Don't do this at home, kids. So what they were doing was, when you have a business and you have expenses, right, like office rents, equipment, employees pay, you can deduct all that from your taxes. Well, what they were doing was they were paying for all these people's cars and apartments and their children's education and all this other stuff that doesn't qualify as deductions, business deductions. They're personal, right? They're personal expenses. But they were classifying them as business expenses so they could deduct millions and millions and millions of dollars a year off their taxes. One of the other big ones that coming up is Trump has probably done a ton of this too. I'm sure everybody there was doing it. One of the big ones coming up is Ivanka Trump is in some trouble because she took a sizable sum, at least in the six figures that I'm aware of, in consulting fees, but it's not clear that she did any consulting. So the way this works, boys and girls, is if you give somebody money, right? Like I give Lacey money, I can give her up to $16,000 a year, and I don't have to pay or report it, right? Or pay any tax on it or anything. If I go over $16,000, I have to report it, but I have a lifetime exemption. I think right now it's a little over 12 million per person. So this does not going to affect 99.99% of people, but for Trump, this probably is a big deal. So the $12 million, let's say I give Lacey 20,000, well, 4,000 would come off my 12 million for my lifetime tax exemption. Now, if I'm a guy like Trump, though, I probably already expended my lifetime exemption, right? So if daughter Ivanka comes to me and her husband's just tanked his huge project with Dumbo Heights, where he lost, God, almost hundreds of millions, tens of millions, whatever it was, and she needs money. Now here's the problem. I could give her, let's say $10 million is what she needs. I could give her the money, but then everything over the 16,000 I'd owe gift tax on, because I've probably expended my lifetime exemption of 12 million, right? So I now have to give her that money, but now I have to pay tax, and the gift tax could be anywhere between 18 to 40%. It gets high, right? So that's a lot. So if it could be anywhere between 1.8 million to $4 million in taxes I have to pay just to give her 10 million. So now I'm in it for 12 to 14 million. Or I could break the law and I could hire her as a consultant and deduct the $10 million off of my business taxes So I actually save money, even though this is highly illegal, it's fraud, and then give her the money. So she still gets the money. I don't have to pay the tax. And in fact, I got a tax deduction. So a lot of shit like that. I'm not saying that was going on exactly with Ivanka. They're still investigating that, but that's one of the things they're investigating. But a lot of stuff
Right.
like
It's
that.
one of the things that they're looking into because they don't have a clear indication of in what manner she consulted, what she consulted on, any projects. They don't have any evidence of that actually happening.
Well, they do have now 17 guilty counts against the organization. So now they can go against individuals who might have received money. So, yeah, hang on. Excuse me there.
That's a rough day in Trump land, man.
Yeah, so it's going to kind of kill their business. So that was our fun news for today. To add from our news segment, Kanye's still in deep shit. So,
Right.
and Elon's not doing real well either. So we're, par for the course this week.
So Duncan, I guess we might as well talk about some fun and exciting
Stuff. So
business practices and
let's talk about
employment activity, perhaps.
employment activity. Let's talk about mainly employee pay and because that's gone up quite a bit recently. But it has been a problem in the past, economically and just in general for personal finance. But I want to show you, it's an older video. If it'll come over here. There we go. This is Katie Porter talking to Jamie Dimon in Congress. And she's going to give him an example of what he pays a standard employee.
Early. She had $2,425 a month. She rents a one-bedroom apartment. She and her daughter sleep together in the same room. In Irvine, California, that average one-bedroom apartment is going to be $1,600. She spends $100 on utilities. Take away the $1,700, and she has net $725. She's like me. She drives a 2008 minivan and has gas. $400 for car expenses and gas. Net $325. The Department of Agriculture says a low-cost food budget, that is ramen noodles, a low food budget is $400. That leaves her $77 in the red. She has a Cricket cell phone, the cheapest cell phone she can get for $40. She's in the red $117 a month. She has after-school childcare because the bank is open during normal business hours. That's $450 a month. That takes her down to negative $567 per month. My question for you, Mr. Dimon, is how should she manage this budget shortfall while she's working full-time at your bank?
I don't know that all your numbers are accurate. That number is generally a starter job.
She is a starting employee. She has a 6-year-old child. This is her first job.
You can get those jobs out of high school, and she may have my job one day.
Mr. Dimon, she doesn't have the ability right now to spend your $31 million.
Always sympathetic.
She's short $567. What would you suggest she do?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Would you recommend that she take out a JP Morgan Chase credit card and run a deficit?
I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
Would you recommend that she overdraft at your bank and be charged overdraft fees?
I don't know. I'd have to think about it.
So I know you have a lot.
I'd love to call up and have a conversation about her financial affairs and see if we can be helpful.
See if you can find a way for her to live on less than the minimum that I've described.
Just be helpful.
Well, I appreciate your desire to be helpful, but what I'd like you to do is provide a waiver.
All right, so kind of.
I love her.
Katie Porter, yeah, she kind of nailed the point home, which is we do have a problem where people are not getting paid enough to live. And you wonder why there's such high turnover and companies are having a hard time filling positions. This is part of it. I mean, if you can't live, then why even bother?
Why are you going to be loyal to a company who's not going to pay you enough to be able to actually meet your bills and then a little extra?
Right.
You should be able to make all of your bills and put something into your savings account or take yourself to a movie or something, and her budget doesn't even allow for that.
Well, furthermore, if you work in the finance industry and you're underpaying your employees, that's even more embarrassing. And I don't know, I'd have to think about it. You're the CEO of one of the largest banks in the world. You're international. You make $31 million a year. You can't figure out a simple budget?
The starting wages that they pay entry-level employees in the banking industry are absolutely atrocious. I'm somebody who used to work in it, so I
I'll
know
give
how much people were making in those entry-level positions. And yes, they are entry-level, but people at entry-level still actually do have to be able to make bills.
I'll give them credit though. They did raise their minimum pay, but not long after this happened, because they were pretty humiliated.
Yeah.
That's when they hired Kevin Hart to be their spokesman, the comedian, and he did a bunch of videos, but they're just ads for J.P. Morgan. And we'll go over that kind of hypocrisy of that. But I wanted to give that example just so you get a sense of there is a systemic problem with pay in this country, and it just hasn't gone up in a long, long time. And for employers like that, it's hard because just when you're an employer, that's usually your biggest expense is your employee cost, right? But I can't change, like if I own a restaurant, I can't change the cost of the rent for the restaurant or the food or any of that. But what I can do is cut down my employee pay and benefits if I want to make more money. But when you start doing that over and over and over, and that becomes the norm, then you start to run into problems like this. And then you start to run into problems where like nobody wants to work for you anymore. But let's see what Dave Ramsey has to say about this. I think let's count this. Let's count this as a cage match. Let's do a cage.
Okay.
We'll count it as a cage match. Let's see. Dave has what is it? A guy calling him asking, "Should I pay my employees a living wage?"
Wait, that's the literal question?
That's the title of the video.
Oh boy. Okay.
Should I pay my employees a living wage? No. They should starve.
Today's question comes from Thomas in Missouri. As a Christian, I feel like I have a duty to take care of my employees. I have a small business with 9 employees that currently make minimum wage. If I were to raise their wages to a living wage, then my profit margin would decrease. This is a business I worked really hard at for so many years. I think God would want me to benefit from my hard work now. What should I do? Okay. This is an onion here, Dave. Number one, businesses deal with this all the time. And when they raise wages, they have a decision to make. Do you want your profit margin to stay the same?
Okay, so this is Ken Coleman again. He's their employment expert guy, and he's with Dave Ramsey, who's the financial expert guy. All right, just real quick. So he's got 9 employees, small business. All right, he increases their wage. I don't know what his business makes or what their wages are, but it'll cut into his profit. Now, that's arguable. Maybe in the short run it would, but it depends on a lot of things. So, what do you think Ken and Dave are going to say? What's the ringside commentator going to say? What's their opening move?
Jeez, okay, let's see. So, 9 employees, and Ken has already said that it's going to get into their
Profit
margins. Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I really want them to go the Christian route, what I would perceive as the Christian route, which is you should definitely be paying them a living wage. However, living wage was not their word. That was your word. Let's be honest. You used that term. They did not.
Right.
So we arguably don't know if they're being paid a living wage or not. It's just about increasing wages. Yeah, based on the car. Gosh, I'm not really sure what I think they're going to say. I want them to say to increase the wages, but I think they're going to maybe hem and haw about it, and they might make some play about giving some incentive, to get them to work harder, to have a bonus, like instead of like actually increase their wage, like
that would be interesting.
Give them some sort of a bonus thing that makes them have to work harder to make things more profitable. And so if it's more profitable, they'll make more money, but then you're not going to lose money.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll go some route like that. But
Okay.
to tell you the truth, I don't think this is obvious what they're going to do. I think they could be wild cards on this one. I don't know.
Okay. Well, just FYI, everybody, I've seen this. Lacey hasn't, so
No,
I
I've never seen
have an
this.
advantage. So you know, even if I win this, it's still kind of cheating.
Yeah, so you're cheating, and I haven't seen this at all.
I had to go through it because I was just dying to know.
And so, if so, then you have to raise your costs, and you have to weigh that with the marketplace and what your customers will or will not pay. And this is the dance that a lot of small business people have to deal with, and have had to deal with, and have been hurt from it. So, I don't think it's a choice here between God wants you to benefit from your hard work now, and not doing what you want to do, which is pay your employees more. I think you can do both, but you're going to have to square raising some prices or cutting costs in other areas, if that's even an option. This is hard to answer. I want to say that everything I just said, it's very difficult to answer that via a static question where we can't answer a lot of questions. Ask more questions.
Yeah. The buzzword that's the problem in this is living wage.
And who determines that?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you who determines. Me.
That's my
I'm the employer.
saying.
No, I'm the employer. Here's the thing, okay? If I pay $12 an hour, or if I pay...
Wait a minute. Hold up. Stop the presses here. So the employer decides what a living wage is. So one employer can decide that it just only costs you XYZ amount to live in whatever city, regardless of whether they're completely delusional or not. While the other employer gets to decide that it costs you this other amount to live. So it has nothing to do with actual prices of anything. It's just whatever the employer decides is the amount you need to live is a living wage.
Right. The argument would be is you as the employer have to decide what you can afford. But I'm going to teach you a little lesson, boys and girls. You get what you pay for. You pay shit wages, you're going to get shit employees. Right?
And those shit employees won't even stick around.
Nope. If I sit there and go, well, like, look, boss, I need a raise, da-da-da, for whatever. It doesn't matter what for. They don't have to tell me. I want a raise. And I'm like, well, I'm not giving you one. Well, I can't afford to live. Well, here's a refrigerator box. I'm the employer. That's a living wage. You have a refrigerator. You have a roof now.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! That's the problem with how he's saying it. It's just so fucking stupid. No, living wage is actually determined academically. And there's, I think it's called the Anchor methodology, where they determine what living wage is. And part of that affects why we vote on minimum wage and why cities have now started to raise minimum wages. So just to give you an example, I live in Portland, Oregon. You go back 10 years ago, it was $7.25 an hour, right? If you worked in the service industry, because you got tips, right? You were a waiter or waitress or something, they could pay you like $3 an hour or $3.15, whatever it was, because they assumed you were making tips, right? That's all changed now. Minimum wage now in Oregon, in Portland at least, not in all of Oregon, but in Portland is $14.50 an hour. Why? Because you can't survive, and even $14.50 is skimming the surface. But when people talk about that, that's why there's a minimum wage. So you don't, as the employer in Portland, I can't sit there and go, well, I don't want to pay $14.50 an hour. I'm legally required to pay $14.50 an hour minimum. So I can't sit there and go, no, I'm only giving you $5 an hour. I don't get to decide that. So he's wrong.
But furthermore, he just literally doesn't even make any damn sense with what he's saying. Let's be honest. He says that the employer determines what a living wage is.
Yeah.
He can determine what he's able to pay, provided it's minimum wage.
But it's not a living wage. Yeah.
It may not be a living wage, and employers individually don't just get to decide.
No.
If I work for one employer, they don't get to decide that a living wage means X, Y, Z, and then I go to another one and they decide this living wage is actually a different amount.
No.
It actually has to do with real numbers of how much it actually takes to live.
Yeah, there's a calculation. It's not just, I'm just going to pull some number out of my butt because I'm Dave.
Apparently that is what the financial expert here is going to do.
What are minimum wages in your area? Okay. And a guy comes in and you do a budget on the guy and he has 5 kids, and he needs $90,000 a year.
Real quick, you can't.
Wait, oh my God. No, let me take this one. So you have an employee and they come in and you do a budget on the guy. Because clearly that's what every employer is just doing. Be like, Duncan, I am going to hire you for this job. And I know that this is a living wage. And to prove to you that I am paying you a living wage, we're going to do a budget on you.
Right. And
Bring me all your bills, Duncan.
and I'm going to say no. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the OCC and I'm going to file a lawsuit against you for asking me. And then you're going to get fined and you're going to be in deep shit. Because it's illegal. You can't ask me that.
I've lost my mind because that's just a crazy thing to do.
Well, yeah, it's
It
crazy.
doesn't make any sense.
It's crazy and it's illegal. But we'll get more into that in a second. Because he's gonna confess to some more crimes here.
Oh, jeez. What are we watching here?
To pay his bills and feed his kids. I can't, as a Christian, hire him for that job because I can't pay him $90,000 to do that job. And $90,000 for him is a living wage because that's what it takes to feed his 5 kids. Okay? If I have a 19-year-old who lives with his parents, comes in and is looking for part-time work, and any money he makes is going in his pocket because he has basically no personal overhead, and $12 an hour is what I can afford as the employer, then that is his living wage. So this idea that there is a universal living wage is absolute horse crap. There is no such thing because it takes families in different situations, in different locales, a different amount to live. It takes a family.
So here's why this is so fucking terrible and wrong. Boys and girls never, if somebody asks you for a budget, they could ask you if they want to do a credit check or something. Sure. They have to have a good reason to do it, but they can do it. Right? But if they're asking you to give them a budget for what you need to live on every month, what you've essentially done, and he's just proven it, is you've given them a reason to lowball your pay. You don't need this much to live on. You only need this. So I'm only going to pay you this. And that's not how you negotiate wage. You negotiate wage based on competitive value. Right? What are other people doing the same job you're doing making?
And what are your comparative experiences and skills and education levels?
Yeah. This is the kind of shit that's like the reason women get paid less. Is because there's an assumption that they don't need as much.
Which makes literally no sense at all. Rents and
Sexism.
mortgages do not change in price.
No,
based
but
on
the assumption is
your gender.
the assumption is you have a husband and you're eventually going to want to have kids, so that's going to cost me money because I'm going to have to pay you maternity leave. And I mean, that's the assumption, but that's not true of all women. And you can't make those assumptions when you're hiring somebody. And you can't force somebody to tell you a bunch of personal details about their life so you can determine how much you can lowball them. The other thing is when you tell an employer a bunch of personal details like that, and I've dealt with this, and we'll get into this more, that gives them an ability to blackmail you. You're not working hard enough, you're not getting the raise, whatever it is, you don't want to comply with what they're doing, or they're doing something unlawful or horrible, or they're abusive or, sexual harassment. That's how that works, is they just threaten you to keep it quiet. And that's gone on for forever in business. And it's, slowly gotten better, but it's still there. So when you have an employer asking you a bunch of shit, the question is, why do you need to know all this? What are you going to do to me later? Because you're giving them ammunition to threaten you with. And they already control whether or not you have a job at that point, once you're working for them. So you don't, but here's what he's saying. He's saying, I should be able to do this. I should be able to own you as an employee. You should have to tell me everything. And I should get to determine what you're worth. And I should get to determine how much you make. And I should get to determine what hours and da-da-da-da-da. As opposed to, we agree on something. Or I take the job or I don't. Plus, it's hard to sue somebody later if they can threaten you.
Family of 4 more to live in Manhattan than it does in Nashville. So the living wage would be different for a family of 4 or a family of 1 or a family of 14. The living wage changes on that. And so what we do at Ramsey as Christians, we have a responsibility to take care of our employees. And one of the responsibilities is not hiring someone who can't afford to live on what we are paying for that position. So you are disqualified if you can't make it on what we are paying for that position, regardless of...
Well, that's their choice.
You so can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, go for it.
Never mind. We can't offer you this position, not because we don't want you to do it or because you're not qualified or because of any other thing. We're not going to give it to you because you can't afford to take it. Who are you to tell me if I can afford to take it or not?
Well, how should you know that? You shouldn't even know whether or not.
To knowing that.
Right.
So clearly, if you do know that, you're doing something
Wrong
highly inappropriate
as an employer.
in order to find that out as an employer. But then, assuming you do know that, to go ahead and deny employment to a person because you're discriminating on the basis of their family structure or size or financial situation in some way, provided it doesn't involve anything illegal, their financial situation. Yeah, all parts of that are not okay.
Yeah.
You don't get to do that.
Nope. You hit it on the head.
I mean, I'm not even sure how many crimes that is that he just confessed to. I'm not going to take our time to try to count them, but
it's a lot of fines, but we'll see.
If you want the job or you're qualified for the job, we will run a budget with you because we care about you. And
once again, you can't do that. But
it is our responsibility once you are here to make sure you are cared for. And we do take care of our team. Beyond measure, we take care of our team. That's correct. Way beyond measure, we take care of our team.
Whether they want it or not.
As good Christians, we are going to run a budget with you.
You got to know where all your money is.
Listen, because of the nature of what they do for a living, I think it would be a really lovely thing to offer to employees who want to voluntarily do something like that. But that's not what's being said here.
I've actually done this. Gosh. I've actually done this for business clients before, where I've done, okay, if you want, I'll run. If your employees want, I'll help them run a budget, set up their retirement, that kind of stuff, right? But the employees have to decide to hire me individually. And when I do it with the employees, the contract states anything we discuss, I cannot discuss with your employer or anybody else. I'm a fiduciary. So if I go back to the business client and he says, well, what about this person or that, and I'm going to have to say, I can't tell you any of that. You can't ask those questions. If your employee wants to do it with me, that's a contract between me and them. It has nothing to do with my contract between you and me. Right? And you want to be really careful when you do stuff like that because you don't want to, they'll be like, well, should I keep this person or not? You don't want to be accidentally saying something like, well, maybe not. Can't tell you why. You can't even say shit like that. You got to just, that's up to you. I can't tell you anything. Can't even hint.
Oh my gosh, Duncan, how much worse is this going to get?
Oh,
what are you doing to me? You did this because you knew it was going to work me up.
Okay, here we go. Oh, yeah. Fun. Let's see how
you
that
knew
goes.
this would be like, all right, this one's going to get Elacius.
Oh, yeah, because it's bad.
On what we pay for that position. And that is our responsibility. That's your responsibility. So, we had one lady go, well, based on your inappropriate request for my personal budget information, I'm going to withdraw my name from future employment consideration. To which we said, people that talk like that don't even work here. So we're not doing,
Yeah, people that stand up to me don't work here. I mean,
people who know what their rights are and know that you're doing illegal stuff definitely don't have a place working for you.
Look at Ken's face. He's not smiling with his eyes at all. He is. He knows. Look how uncomfortable that look is.
Right.
Yeah.
See ya. Goodbye.
Yeah, Dave.
It's good.
Look at him now.
Don't need you. But the
Look at
reason
him now. Oh, he's so uncomfortable right now.
for the inappropriate request of the personal information is to protect you from you. Because some people will take a job that they can't afford to live on the income because they're so desperate for a job. And but this idea that there's some kind of generic living wage out there floating around that you have a moral obligation to that's a singular number is absolute horse crap. So you're paying minimum wage for 9 employees. Are any of them trying to actually live on that with a family? If so, why did they take that job, or why did you hire them into something they can't afford to live on? And that's a bigger question than do you raise your wages to meet this?
All right. So here's the thing. I didn't hear him the guy say minimum wage for his employees. Did you? Dave just said that.
No.
He just said he had 9 employees.
And he was just saying raising the wages. I don't think minimum
I think he
was
just
a part of that.
He just said he wanted to pay them a better wage, take care of his employees.
Right. He never said a living wage, and he never said a minimum wage. Those are words Dave brought in.
Mm-hmm.
The writer didn't bring those in. The writer just said, like, increasing their wage or something.
Okay, well, I looked this up real quick. So the caller's calling in from Missouri. Let's say it's minimum wage. It's $11.50 an hour, okay? Average person works about 2,000 hours a year. That's 40 hours a week for 50 weeks, plus most people get about 2 weeks off. So let's just do that, 2,000. So you'd be making about $23,000 a year in Missouri. Not that much money. And then let's say I'm the employer and I'm like, okay, I think it would be better for them to be making closer to 20. Okay. So instead of before, what did I have? 23,000 times 9. Oops. Hang on 1 second, everybody. I mishit a key. So that's 207,000 a year for 9 employees that I'm paying. Okay, let's say my gross is $1 million. After expenses and stuff, I'm still making, say, 300,000, 250,000. Let's say 250. So I'm making 250. I'm paying 207 in employee costs. Let's say I want to increase their wage, right? So, what did I say? 250 from $1 million, so 750 is what I'm getting paid. So 207,000. 50. So 543,000 to run the business. Okay, so let's say I increase their wage to $20 an hour times 2,000. So is that 40,000 times 9? So 360, right? Oops. So now I've had to lower my income down to probably about 105,000 from 250. So that's a big jump. Do I want to make that jump? Right? Maybe I go with a smaller number. Maybe I say, okay, I'm going to raise it to 15. Right? So now I'm still probably making about 170 or 80. So that's the initial cost problem, right? They skip right over that and go to, well, no, you're going to have to raise your costs and put them onto your customers, right? Or you're going to have to cut costs in the rest of your business. What they don't talk about is, why don't I just cut my income and spread it out to my employees? Now, I'm going to give you a great example, and I'll attach this article below. Business Insider did the dumbest article of all time, but it's really, really worth reading. This guy has an ice cream shop, and he can't get people to work, and it's right after COVID, and he's in dire straits. He can't get anybody to come into work for him. So he gets this brilliant idea. Instead of paying the minimum wage where he's at, which is $7.25 an hour, he decides, I'm going to pay $15 an hour for employees to work at my ice cream shop, right? So I'm going to more than double what my normal wage was. As soon as he did that, he went from nobody applying to thousands of people applied. He got to pick the people he really wanted. And what he found was his employees were on time more. They worked harder because at minimum wage, they're probably working 2 to 3 jobs. So now they only really have to have the one job because they're making enough to get by. So they show up on time. They look better. They're happier. The customer service improved. And what happened? Within a month, his profits started going way, way up because he got more and more repeat business because he had better staff. Now, was it because the staff was so much better, or was it because they were more motivated because it was worth the money to them to stay there?
I mean, could absolutely be a combination, but yeah, you know, when you walk in, I don't walk into a lot of ice cream parlors, but I think I walk into a coffee shop and I'm ordering a coffee to go, and
The employees burned out and they treat you like shit.
the employees burned out, not paying attention, treat you like crap, takes 5 minutes before they even call you up to take your order. Like, you know what I mean? You're not eager to go back in there. You go, oh, there's another one not that far away. I'm just going to go there, right? Like,
Right.
That's kind of what you do.
Right. And a lot of times that's a result of they're just not paying the employee. So this idea that this is going to hurt
The
his...
employee has no reason to care.
So the idea that this is necessarily going to hurt his business doesn't pan out. That was just one example. But if you look at enough business studies about this, the idea that you pay your employees well, you give them good benefits, you treat them well, you have less turnover, which saves you a ton of money as a business owner. Because if you have to keep rehiring and training, it costs a lot of time and money. So less turnover, employees are more apt to be on time, work harder, do better job. Why? Because they like the job. They want to keep the job. If you're the kind of person who throws in bonuses and regular raises and things like that, then yeah, everybody wants to stay. Nobody wants to go. Right? So it's just one of those things about it's the what was the Alexander the Great, and he had that whole thing about his father would tell him your army is your blood, right? Because you're nothing without your army. For Alexander, he conquered most of the Middle East, right? Got all the way to India, but that was the whole thing: is if you're not keeping your army happy, then are they really that keen to fight for you and die for you? No, but he overpaid them. I mean, they got huge chunks of all the plunder. And he got those people to follow him for 10 years into the Middle East and conquer all the Middle East. Because they were making bank. You know?
Oh, man.
I mean, it's just, but that's the thing, is it's they missed the whole point here. And I think, Ken, you're the employment expert. You're not commenting. You either know or you're just not saying that what we're talking about is not legal. Yeah. Sorry,
I was just offering that it doesn't seem like they market Ken as being somebody who's an expert on the employer side of things, but more an expert on the networking to find the career of your dreams situation.
Then he should know what employee rights are.
Well, I would think so.
I mean,
that's not the way they spin the marketing on him. I don't know.
Find the job of your dreams with an employer who will sexually harass you and take advantage of you and bully you and abuse you, and you can't do anything about it because they have all your personal information and they can blackmail you. The Ken Coleman method.
His personal information to his employer.
Which tells you how smart he is.
Well, I mean, so you're saying that as if he wouldn't really do it, but he did it with his own. So
no, I'm saying that's what he did. I'm saying it's. Yeah. I mean, once again, I mean, you're going to take advice from a guy that works for Dave Ramsey about finding the perfect job. All right, so let's go to this. I'm going to do this real quick, and then we'll finish up this video. I'm going to do a couple quick things. So I'll add these articles down below too. So this is the Tennessean. This is an article that was actually written by, what was it? Here it was. Is Dave Ramsey's empire the best place to work in America? Say no and you're out. So Bob Smietana for the Religion News Service. This is a Christian paper the guy writes for. And the Tennessean picked up this article. Come on. Where is it? There you go. So it's been republished. All right. So here we go. So what was it? Detox tickets to workshops, enter leadership run from 3 to 10,000. We covered that last time. So they're charging a shit ton. He's got his Financial Peace University through God's way of doing finance, right? No. So let's get down to the juice. Here we go. Ramsey's intolerance for dissent has created what former employees call a cult-like environment where leaders proclaim their love for staff and then fire people at a moment's notice. Former employees and their spouses say it's run more like a church than a business. A review of court documents, company emails, and recordings of staff meetings backs up these sources' claims that company leaders attempt to exert control over employees' personal lives, which is what he just described in his video. That's what he does.
Oh, it even gets worse, though. I mean, like, you remember the whole Chris Hogan thing,
Well,
right?
here's one. At a staff meeting in July, I can't remember when this was actually done, but this, I think, is last year. It's 2021. The staff meeting in July, Ramsey railed at his staff after an employee sued Ramsey Solutions for firing her for having premarital sex. It's, again, blackmail. They fired an employee for something of their personal life that has nothing to do with them. And that's against company policy, which you can't be. You can't dictate what you do in your personal life. But he had to pay it. He said he would pay the price to protect what he had built. No, you paid it because you fucking had to, Dave. You weren't gonna win that one. I'm sick of dealing with all this stuff, he bellowed. I'm so tired of being falsely accused of being a jerk. What I'm trying to do is help people stay in line. Yeah. That's a nice
It's
thing.
not your job to decide what in line is,
Right.
especially in their personal lives.
Well, I know, but that's what I'm saying. It's like I said, it's cult-like. He thinks he knows. So, I mean, and this goes on and on about more and more people that have sued him and all this shit that's happening in his business. And I want to go to this. So I'm going to post this. This is Zeddy. So these are questions that you cannot be asked in an interview. Okay? But just for this, financial information. Illegal interview questions, right? If used to discriminate. Do you own a car? Do you own or rent a home? Are you in debt? If you own a car, owning a car is part of the job, they can ask. But other than that, they can't ask you to do a budget. They can't ask you about your height, weight. They can't ask you your religion, your race, your ethnicity, your marital status. If they ask for a budget, they're asking for all this information: gender, disability, citizenship. They can't ask this shit. So here we have Dave asking a bunch of illegal shit so he can control these people's lives. And that's what I'm talking about, is you see this with employers. And so they're giving this guy advice. And I feel bad for this guy in Missouri, Thomas in Missouri, who called them, right? Because it's like, dude, you're asking an employer who's regularly sued by employees for violating their rights. And the reason Dave gets away with it so much is because he can threaten them. He's got a ton of money. He can throw in attorneys at it. He can show letters of demand, letters of, whatever. And just countersue and do all kinds of stuff and make their lives miserable for years while they fight this. And I've sued an employer before, and it took 4 years. And most people give up. I didn't because I'm a prick, but but most people aren't me. But that's how they get away with this shit. But it starts with, so, are you married? Blah, blah, blah. That's another thing they do. They request to meet your significant other, your spouse. They can't ask that. It's amazing. I can't believe you'd ever ask that. No, I need to meet your spouse first, just to make sure.
Yeah, they do some, like,
it's in the Tennessean
dinner
article.
double date sort of something.
Yeah, it's in the Tennessean article. And he actually put it in one of his books that you should meet the spouse of the person you're hiring first. I mean...
Did he? He put it in his book?
Mm-hmm. According to the article.
Oh, man.
So I think we both get the knockout on this one. I mean, it's just terrible advice. As far as good business advice, look, you're gonna raising employee pay to a reasonable amount, whatever that may or may not be. It really depends on what are your competitors paying, but also you don't have to do it all at once, which is the other thing. If I've got employed, like I'm this guy Thomas in Missouri, I've got 9 employees and I'm paying them $11.50, and I'm like, really it should be 15, but I can't afford 15 right now, right? What I could do is say to them, hey guys, you're doing a great job. I think you're all wonderful. I am going to give you guys a $1.50 an hour raise, right? And then see where it goes. And if in 3 or 6 months or whatever it is, wow, we're making more money, things are better, I might say, guys, you know what? You guys have killed it. I'm giving you another $1.50 an hour raise. Things get better. Well, I'm giving you whatever it is, whatever we had, $2.50 an hour raise or $2 an hour raise or whatever it is. And now they're making over that money, and your profits went up, and you didn't have to cut costs necessarily. You didn't have to eat a lot of money.
And you might have retained those same employees rather than having to train up new ones and hire new ones and all that sort of stuff, because that takes a lot of time and energy and financial resources to do. That
Right.
gets overlooked entirely too much.
Right. And that's the thing about when they talk about raising minimum wage is, it hurts businesses. Well, if you raise it a lot at once, yes, it does. If you raise it gradually, no, it doesn't. You see like minor blips of, oh yeah, they had a little downturn for like a month or two, and then blam, things got better. Why? Because employees were getting paid more and they were happier. I mean, you always see this every study on minimum wage. It's not a matter of should we pay them less. It's not a moral question. It's not even an ethical question from a business perspective. It's a financial perspective. It's I want to be paying my employees a little bit more than my competitors. Why? Because then I'm going to get the better employees.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to work harder for me, and they're going to want to stay, and they're going to be more loyal. And we're going to have a better business culture, and I can be more competitive. Right? And when you run a business like that, like I've had a couple of businesses where we've done that, and sure enough, you get people calling you all the time. Are you hiring? Are you hiring? Are you hiring? Because they hear, oh yeah, because these people talk. Oh, I hear you're paying whatever, $5 an hour more and benefits, and I don't have that. And you give bonuses. Ooh. So yeah, I mean that's the way I go with it. So let's wrap this one up real quick, and then we'll call it a day. Let's see if there's anything interesting. I might clip this out, but we'll see. I didn't watch the whole thing. I just
You
watched.
have to look at your business model and the market and go based on whatever product or service I am selling, because it's one of the two. This is what the market will allow me to do, and I may not ever be able to truly have all 9 of them on what would be called a full living wage. You might be in the hourly space, and that's what you have. And thus, you've got turnover. You have younger people working for it. That's just part of your
I had
business.
a guy come in the other day and said a company offered him $80,000 more to do the exact same thing he's doing with us. So we said,
Fantastic.
we'll help you pack your desk.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
We cannot make a return on paying you $80,000 more than you're being paid now. So you're going to be working at the new place, my friend, and we'll help you go. Because we have to make a return on investment here, or the rest of the team doesn't eat, right? Because their checks don't clear. There's a responsibility all the way around. So yes, God would want you to take care of your team, and He would want you to benefit from your hard work. Now, these are not incompatible
That's
things.
correct. Yes,
They're not incompatible.
That's correct.
Okay. So at least we know what God wants. Because God's a capitalist, by the way. That's ridiculous. No, but I mean it's yeah, you gotta take care of your employees, but not in the method they're doing it. it's not taking care of your employees. That's dominating the
Well,
employees.
I agree with the final statement that, you can reap the benefits of your hard work and take care of your employees at the same time. I definitely agree with that. I'm not sure I agree with much of what he said that led up to it.
Yeah.
But that statement, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he does. Is he says a lot of crap, and then he throws in one sort of generic statement that you're like, well, I guess it's true, right? I mean, he could have ended that by saying elephants have trunks, and we'd have to go, well, it's true. I mean, it's not like he said anything revolutionary there. So, anyway, a little bit more of the genius of the Dave Ramsey show. We're gonna wrap up. Where can people catch you, Lace?
All right. Well, they can find me for information about courses and blog posts at mysensewithsense.com. You can also find me as Sense with Sense on Twitter or Instagram. If you want information about courses, or if you just want to write into us because you're interested in Duncan's services, or you have clips you want to send us, questions you want to ask, or show ideas, you can write into us at our email address, which, Duncan, where can they write in?
It is gossipfinancead@outlook.com. Yeah, good show today. Thanks. Good work. Everybody like and subscribe. And thanks for joining us.